Hello and welcome back to It's All Woo to Me. Today I have a very special guest. I have Emily from Phoenix Gateway. Emily is located in Melbourne and makes a range of elixirs or frequency-infused elixirs. She also has templates, which we'll get into those. A very, very deep connection with Egypt and a very interesting story to go with it. So, welcome to the show, Emily.
Thank you, and thank you for having me, Nadia. It's lovely to be here.
Oh, you're very welcome. So, I do know a little bit about you, not too much, and I'm really curious with your frequency infused elixirs. That's what really piqued my interest. And
Yeah,
I'm curious as to how, because you make those, right?
correct.
So, how did that all come about? What was the very beginning of that journey for you?
Okay, so to go back right to the beginning, we'll go back 20 years, or we'll go back actually a little bit more, let's say 22 years, and my husband had been diagnosed with terminal cancer. Um, and just as a little bit of background there as well, my background is actually I'm a Division One nurse, or I was a Division One nurse, so I already also had a nursing background, and I nursed him until he passed. But he was just such an amazing man, and he really opened or unlocked a door for me. And to top that off, his brother had actually passed away 2 weeks before he did of a drug overdose. So it was a really, really
Wow.
traumatic time in our lives. And it really started the day he passed. And I remember sitting out on my deck, and we had a massive deck that was all undercover. And as I'm sitting there, I'm like, I could swear it was raining. Like I could feel droplets on me, but there was no way for that to happen because we were totally undercover. And that really became the beginning of my journey through in terms of the spiritual aspect of everything that started for me. And from there, little things started to happen. Like I'd be standing in my kitchen and I could feel like I was running into spider webs. And I was like, what was that? What am I feeling? There is
Mm.
something really, really weird going on. And over, and at that point, when he passed, I was 32 years old. And
Oh,
I,
wow.
I
That's
was,
young. That's
yeah,
young to lose
4
a
young
husband,
children to
partner.
bring up, under 10 on my own, but I have had wonderful family that supported me. But what I started finding within the first few months, and mind you as well, I'd never had a reading. I've never been down the woo-woo track at all. But what was happening was I started finding myself walking down the street, and I'd be at a crystal shop, or I was drawn to going to these shops. And seriously, it was like someone was standing next to me. And as soon as I'd start walking past, even a jewelry shop, I remember at Doncaster Shopping Town, and it was like someone stopped me and literally turned my head like this. And I had to actually look at what was in the window. And that's how I found myself starting to choose crystals as well. And so I started picking up crystals, and I had no idea what I was doing, but I was bringing them home, then found myself going to crystal shops. Same thing. I'd be walking around, and all of a sudden it'd be like someone turning my head. Like, seriously, I was scared of myself because I didn't know what was
So,
actually
did you
happening.
feel like just drawn to them, like just like magnetically? So, probably
Yeah.
drawn to their frequency, I would
Yeah.
imagine.
I would say that's what was happening, but I needed to be guided. And as I was being guided towards these, I started picking them up, and I would then be going home, and I'd start putting them on my body. No idea what I was doing, but started putting them on my body, going, what am I doing?
So, all of this you're just doing intuitively.
Intuitively, everything, because I used to call myself the golden diamond girl. I had no idea, blinkers on, very grounded in terms of family, And that was my life. You know, I liked the creature comforts, didn't know anything else. And around that time, I also found my first person that I went and had readings with, and found myself saying things to her. And she was so taken by what I was saying that she sort of took me under her wing and started to, you know, teach me a few things, and actually taught me how to get into contact with my guides and whatnot. But she had also done a reading for me, and she literally told me the whole, like, it was like the Last Supper, you know, as we see with Jesus and all the disciples. She actually could see the last game that my husband had held at our home, with everybody sitting around the table. Like, it was that profound, like everything that, just the synchronicities and everything that was happening. And, you know, so I started getting more into the crystals, thinking I better do a crystal course, found myself, you know, looking for a crystal course. I'd found one and I did it. And it was probably about that time, like it wasn't long after, it was about a year after my husband passed away. And I then also started finding myself getting these crystals. I'd get an individual crystal because I was starting to look into them, and I put them in water. And I wanted to see what would happen if I sat them in there and what I could create. And so I just started playing with these frequencies. I had no idea what I was really doing, but I understood that, you know, every crystal held its own energy and you could use them for its own purposes, you know. Again, it's all that complementary therapy and what we can use it for, you know, whether it be for love or for fear, releasing fear or whatever it would be. So I created like about 30 different water frequencies at the time. And I was like, okay, now what do I do? I had no idea what I was doing. And I thought, well, maybe I need to start going even deeper and looking into, you know, maybe doing a course to teach me if I'm actually doing it all correctly. And in between that time, between doing my crystal healing course and crystal light healing, I did Reiki. And so I did my Reiki 1, 2, and 3. And so I already was getting into the healing aspect. So it was just, everything was just starting to happen for me. But
All adding up and accumulating, really, isn't it? Along your journey.
But what it did was give me purpose, because having in that time frame as well, not only did 3 years after I lost my mum to cancer, so it really was, it was so traumatic. And here I am raising my children and having these losses, dealing with grief. And, you know, I had to find something that was actually going to, you know, keep me going forward without, you know, falling into a heap while I was bringing up, you know, my children, raising the kids. So everything I did was for my purpose, and, you know, and started to find my power and my passion. And so I went and did another course. I think it was like 2009 I started. Oh, it was probably about that time, but I'd found someone else to study under and realized that everything that I was doing was actually correct, and, you know, working with my intuition. But what I realized was, as I started doing more study and not only doing courses, also doing my own research, I started playing more and more with what I was creating and what I was doing. And it was from that time that I then started looking at the templates, which you brought up earlier
Yeah,
as
yeah. So
well.
with those crystals, you were infusing their energy into the water. You said you were doing something with water
Correct.
before. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I always called my Elixirs essences. It was actually a girlfriend of mine that a number of years ago said, hang on, I think you need to look now at changing the word. Because when we're creating an essence as such, you know, we're looking at a singular essence, a singular energy of creation. But what I started creating was putting together a synergy of energy. And so when you're doing that, you're then creating like a musical harmonic, which is how I see my work. So it's about embedding these frequencies into water, which creates an elixir, because you're creating more than one energy, into that
product.
Yeah.
And so those elixirs that you now create, are they still water-based?
All of them are
Or
water-based.
yeah, oh, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
So,
and
yeah.
I find that, I was just wondering, like, with these elixirs, how do you recommend people use them? Like, say, for example, if I see an elixir there and I like the sound of it, I think you said earlier, like, you may have one for releasing fear or love. We've got a variety of different elixirs. Obviously, I'm assuming infused with different frequencies based on what it's designed to do. How would you recommend someone uses these if I wanted to use one of these elixirs?
So I actually have 35 in my whole range, but I only talk about 34 of them because I've created another one since, and for now it just needs to stay with me. But they're each one of them. So I have them in front of me so you can see. So this is how I have them all packaged. That is the full set.
Oh, wow. So you can buy, okay, so you have them available as a whole set.
Yeah.
Right.
So each one is a water frequency. But to keep these water frequencies, these frequencies are kept with usually brandy or vodka. And you make them up into a mother tincture. So it becomes 50% of the frequency that you've created with 50% of brandy or vodka or whatever you would choose to use. You can actually make them as well with apple cider vinegar, but apple cider vinegar won't last as long. Like, you've got to take them a lot quicker. And for those who, you can still use them, like you can put drops into your water, and any alcohol, like if you've had issues with alcohol, you can still use them. You would just disperse them in water, or even though they're kept with alcohol, you can actually make a bottle with apple cider vinegar. So because the amount of alcohol, by the time you've gone from a mother tincture to a stock bottle to a dosage bottle, which is what your client receives, the amount of alcohol in it is very little. So in terms of taking them, they can be taken in all different ways. You can actually, the best way is to ingest them. So they are made for ingesting under the tongue. They're very much like your flower, your Bach remedies. It's the same concept. Other crystal, remedies that people create.
So like a drop or two under the tongue, or in the mouth, something like that.
So I work with 3, 6, and 9. That's what I've always done, even before I really even understood it, because a lot of the time you'll see with homeopathics it might be 7 drops, and I've never taken to the 7. I've gone with 9. So I say 3 drops, 9 drops 3 times a day, for example. But then I tell people to intuit it, because I think that's really, really important, in how they can work for you. And then go with the gut feel of, do I take, you might find you're taking them for a long time to start, and then you start having less and less and less, and you'll either finish the bottle and want another one. I've done that before. I take all my own elixirs and test them out. Or you might just find, I've had enough of this one. But then the other thing I do is I'll combine them, so I can do a personal elixir for you. You might say, you might come to me for a healing or whatnot. We can actually create and put together, like I had a girlfriend or a client, a friend of mine come for a healing last week, and I created an elixir for her, but we put 5 of these, elixirs into the one bottle, because that's what I felt she needed. So
you can custom make them as well on people's requirements. Oh, that's really good. So you don't even have to, so you don't really even have to just focus on what your current range is, which it sounds quite vast anyway with 34. But if I'm like, I want a bit of this and a bit of that, and I or whatever I may need, I can
Yeah.
say to you, these are the frequencies I want. Is there a limit to the amount of frequencies you can infuse in an
Look,
elixir, or what do you feel about that?
I think there does come a time when you know, okay, you go enough's enough. But you know, I've actually made one for someone where I've actually used the range of solfeggio frequencies that I've created. And I've actually done one where I've infused each one of the solfeggio frequencies into the one bottle. You know, you're only using maybe 3 drops, 1 to 3 drops, depending on, even though I'm more into 3. So, you know, it would have been, I'd say, 3 drops at that time of each one into the bottle. For that sort of thing, I think is absolutely fine. Would I go ahead and make you something with every single one? No, I wouldn't. So, you know, but I have them in a range as well. Like I have the solfeggio frequencies. I have a number of Egyptian frequencies that I've created. I've created a couple when I've been in Peru. So one of the things that I've done with a number of my elixirs, I've actually created at sacred sites around the world and then bottled that up as well. So depending on where I'm at and how I choose to do it, you know.
Wow. So you actually create some of these at these sacred sites.
Yeah.
That's really, really fascinating.
So
And do you find them more powerful?
I do.
More potent?
I do.
Yeah.
Because you're at the actual site and it
I
makes
would imagine.
a difference. Yeah, it definitely makes a difference. And to how I make them as well has been different for each one of them, you know, because not always do you have the same sort of time to create when you're at these places. So whether or not, you know, you put still, you know, you might get the frequency from where you're at, and then, you know, you're then gridding it, you know, and placing it with certain crystals or plants from that actual area, feathers that you may find in the rocks. It can be anything. And you know, you're enhancing that particular energy of the frequency that you have bottled. But we know that these sacred sites were built on these specific ley lines, you know, vortexes, because the ancients, you know, or older, they knew where they needed to build to get the best enhancement of the energy, you know, for their purposes.
So what are some of the sacred sites that you visited and created these elixirs at?
Okay, I've actually created 2 in Peru. I created one in a place called Chonta, which was very, very high altitude. I can't remember now because it was a long time ago, but it was at the place of the condors. And so the actual elixir itself is called condor medicine. And interestingly enough, I created a template before I actually went there. I created a template and it's called Unlimited Potential. And it's all about knowing that you can reach your, you know, your goals. Like you can create and be whoever you want to be and manifest whatever you want in your life. You know, you've just got to change your mindset, change your thought patterns. And the condor is the bird that can fly. You know, the link is the condor, you know, is the bird that can fly the highest. You know, so you're reaching for the skies. So that I created there. And then I created another one called Munaki, which means I love you. And for that one, I actually work specifically with San Pedro or Wachuma, which is a cactus, and to assist me in creating that particular.
What was that product called?
It's called Munaki.
Munaki. What language is that?
Means I love you in Quechua.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
There you go.
And so when I was, because I've been a couple of times, I created that one. And yeah, that one means I love you. And it's a really, really beautiful elixir. And with that one as well, I'd already created a beautiful template, which is called Love Frequency, which I also infused into the elixir as well. So that's, I know we'll get into that at some point.
Yeah, definitely want to find out about your templates too.
I've made a few of my elixirs in Egypt,
Yeah.
at different sacred sites, different temples within the pyramids. I've done that as well.
Yeah, I do see you go to Egypt a lot.
Yeah,
Like
I've been 5 times, so, and counting. I intend to go more often. And then I created a beautiful one, like really, really beautiful one called Mapun, which means when the healing and stars align. And I did that at Uluru just before we went into initial lockdown. And that one's infused with the energetics of Uluru. I had a friend at the time, we had gone together and we both practiced Palawa. So we were using the energetics of Palawa as well within that elixir. And, after that, I had that, I then sat it into a grid that I created and using some of the plants within that area as well to bring in, a specific energy that was there to be created.
Mm-hmm.
I'm one of those people that I create before I actually channel what they're about. That's how I've always worked. So whether it's
you're almost channeling it anyway, aren't you? Like you're channeling the creation of it.
Correct.
But you're not actually channeling, like you said, the understanding of it perhaps, or why you're doing it. You're sort of just following that intuition that it sounds like you've followed, for years now, and it's worked out.
I'd like to actually just mention, so the other day I was actually put up a post and I actually put it up about the law of polarity.
Mm-hmm.
And I did a spiel on that. And, I'm thinking to myself afterwards, I'm thinking about my elixirs and just everything that I have started to acknowledge in my life and what I've learned. It's over 20 years of study and learning and, whether we make mistakes, whether we, is there such a thing as mistakes, but, we learn from everything we do. And, polarity, well, here we go. We say, oh, but is it really failure over success? The fact is failure and success come from the same. You're just looking at them at a different degree, in terms of their meaning and finding the balance.
The separate sides of the same thing.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the polarity.
Yeah. And it's one of the Hermetic principles. Anyway, what I realized, and I said this to a girlfriend last week, I go, I really don't realize how profound the work is that I've brought through. So when I started, actually, the elixirs that are a part of my set of lab, the ones that I brought through first were called owl, wolf, and snake. They're 3 separate elixirs. And I can't tell you why to this day that, Spirit's always guided me this way, or a lot of, specifically the first lot that I made were all animals and, coming under that banner. But what I got shown when I created these, and you can see it for 2 reasons. Owl was all about the awakening, that pineal activation, and it's, seeing the light. Then I created wolf. Wolf is all about the heart, coming from and these are my perceptions as well. So, other people might perceive it differently, and that's okay. Wolf is the leader, but wolf is about speaking his heartfelt truths and, coming from matters of the heart. And then you have snake, and snake is all about transformation, transmutation. It's all about our jump in consciousness, our shift that we
shedding
experience.
your skin. I mean, that's the whole
we're shedding
snake
the
thing,
skin,
right?
absolutely. Yeah. So when you put together owl, which is all about the awakening aspect, okay, open mind, and you come in with wolf with the open heart, you are actually creating that awareness, that shift in consciousness. And it's not only that, the way they also showed me to start with is that it's how we activate our own Merkaba body. and from that, it was like really, really profound. But when we look, and even Robert Edward Grant is another one that speaks of this, the reasons we come into this lifetime, and I agree and I very much believe in it. And when I look back at my work and what I've created nearly 20 years ago, or started to create nearly 20 years ago, they are showing us we are here for purpose. And the reason we choose to come here is that we are here to learn to love, to go into unconditional love, And then the other thing that we're here to truly to learn is that the awakening process, and creating the awareness. Awareness is consciousness. And it's about the shift in consciousness that we are here to learn. It's about us coming from that lower state of ego and then coming into that higher self, that higher state of awareness, and coming from a place of love. And I think that's what is so, so important. And it's showing me that my work has shown me this from the beginning, as it has come through, what I've created. And it's taken me all this time to actually even, realize the extent of, or the profound wisdom that is already innate within, these frequencies. And it just took time for me to catch up to my higher self, which is really what happens. Because everything we channel comes from our higher self. Like, all the work that I've done related to Egypt has all come through the energy of Thoth, for me, for example. So even though it's necessarily not Thoth talking to me, it's still the wisdom of Thoth that's coming through, but it's coming through the higher self. And I was writing and channeling information from him from 2017. I didn't even get to go, or I didn't actually get to go to Egypt until 2018, because that's when I went, that's it, I have to go. It was through his wisdom that he told me I had to go to a place called the Assyrian in Abydos. I had no idea where that was or what it was all about. But I had the biggest activation of my life being, just being there. And this is why I am so drawn also to these transformative tours that I'm here to start creating, because I want others to actually see it from my perspective.
Mm-hmm. And so with these elixirs as well, you mentioned earlier you do something with your templates. Now, for those who may not be aware, can you explain
all right. So
what these templates
also
are?
have a card deck, right? So these templates became a card deck. So
and what are they called?
So they're the sacred geometry healing cards. And
sacred geometry, yeah.
So they're all based on sacred geometry. So the story with the cards went like this. When I started creating the elixirs, they started going hand in hand, the elixirs with the templates. And
so the templates are based on sacred geometry?
They're all based on sacred geometry. Like, for example, this one's not in any of the decks, but this was the last one I created. But
nice
when I first started, so the master templates are what I started with. And I actually have 12 in all, but in the second edition, there's 11. The 12th one, which is this one, I did in 2018 before I went to Egypt. So again, I had no idea why I was creating this stuff. I didn't write up about that one until till 2019, to be honest. Like, after I had got back, it was the end of the year that I'd been. But for example, like, this is the rebirth. This is snake medicine. Okay.
So what's that? It's like a circle with, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Rebirth is all about the birth, death, and rebirth cycle. And it's all about the snake medicine. It's all about that transmutation, transformation, the shedding of the skin. And so what ended up happening was I started going, okay, they're showing me I have to make these elixirs. I need a template to work with. oh, I'm really good at cutting and pasting, as you would at kinder or, in primary school. And I'd put together what I wanted to create. I'd find shapes and different things on the internet. Then I would, get my crystals, I'd get words, I'd get flowers, anything. Just remember, everything is energy. So whatever you're using,
Yes.
you're bringing a different frequency to, the work that we do. The clothes we
Yes.
wear, the frequency, the colors we wear,
Everything.
everything, the food we eat, everything, our thoughts. So I got to a point where I got to one called spider medicine. So owl, wolf, and snake I seemed to do fine on my own. Then it must have been spider medicine was next. And spider is about releasing fear. And I couldn't, for the life of me, I had this picture in my head of what I wanted to create, but I didn't know how to do it. And at that time, I asked around. I found myself a digital artist, and we started speaking. He's created my whole deck. He's done all my work. He's just phenomenal. But I said, this is what I want to create. Can you help me? Because each one of those,
Oh, wow. So it looks
so
like a
I did
big spider
spider's
web, right?
web.
Yeah.
But
And
actually,
so all these designs you essentially just channeled without knowing you were
yeah,
channeling them.
absolutely. So this one, the whole web is made up of Metatron's cube, and I didn't know how to cut and paste that. And then you've got the dodecahedron and the cube, because as above, so below. You're going from
Yes.
from base up to spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is how it all started. And then from this one was actually Merkaba healing, which actually came through because I could start seeing that pattern of the Metatron's cube within the, shape of the Merkaba. And it just went from there. And from there, I created another one, created another one until I created enough. And someone said, well, what? I never, over the time I thought, oh, could I create a card deck? I remember like, oh, that's too much work. Anyway, I'd gone to, it must have been 2015 or 16. I was at a festival, it might have been 2015, and it was closer to the end of the year. And I got, someone looked at me and said, why don't you create a card deck out of these templates? I'm like, oh, it was like I needed permission to be told this is what I could do. Within 2 days, I created the whole deck of
Wow.
cards. And it was just like, oh my God, that's amazing. Even I was amazed that I had done it.
So what do you use these cards for?
Oracle
Like, are they
cards.
like
So
as
I've
oracle
created
cards?
them for a number of reasons. They're actually for healing, but first and foremost, and I wanted to teach people about sacred geometry, because what people need to understand is sacred geometry is the fundamental building blocks of all creation. And we are sacred geometry. Everything we see around us is sacred geometry. It's built from, I teach it. When I teach, I go, we're looking at primary solids, we're looking at secondary, so we go from one solid to the next. If there are any solids I'd tell you to learn, you learn the 5 platonic solids. They're the ones you really want to know about, because the rest you can learn later. But I thought, if I created an oracle deck, and I say to people, okay, if this is how you want to use them as an oracle deck, pull one card. With that one card, what do you see from it? How do you feel? I say, go about your whole day, come back to that card, think about your day, look at the card and see how it correlates, and does it make sense to you, on how you're feeling. And, the other thing is that because we're working with geometry as well, like, you can do it with any card. Everything holds a frequency. Any oracle deck, any tarot deck, they all hold a frequency. But here you're working with specific geometry. And so, for example, right, like, because it's in front of me. So the Merkaba, for 2 reasons. A, we could use this one for ascension. So we're working on shifting our level of consciousness, our ascent, and we want to rise, going up energetically. We could grid this with certain crystals that are also used more for ascension, your higher vibratory crystals. And we could use words, we could create that grid with it. Okay, and you can put it on an altar. You could also use this card if you've been physically unwell. Physically, mentally, it doesn't matter. Emotionally, if you've been unwell, because we can actually use this particular shape to assist us on a healing aspect as well. The other thing that's beautiful is then what you do is you're going to add on your own frequency. So you could just have this card. So I said to my girlfriend the other day, I said to her a particular card after the healing. I said, this is what I saw very clearly. Get the card out, because she has my deck, and get your water and sit it on it, because what are we doing? We're going
So
to
you're going to imprint
use
that
the water.
frequency, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
And I have this little acronym called PIP: perception, intention, and placement. It's that easy, and half the time you think about it, right, you're already gridding because of where you're placing crystals. Half the time you probably don't even, you're not conscious necessarily, or of the fact that you place that crystal there, because you know what, it might actually help you with love, or it might help you with abundance, but your higher self already knows this. And when you're already in tune and you're just working with your intuition, you just go with it because that seems right. And then the other thing I either lay them. So I have a lot of chiros, kinesiologists, and other practitioners who have actually bought my cards or the templates themselves of the master cards, and they've actually placed it under their healing beds, or on the client. So even for yourself, when you do your QHHT sessions, you could take that card, and I don't know where you you could put one under the person's head if you felt it might help, because it's an aligned with what you feel with your client on that day.
Yeah, and I suppose that it could be a different card, a different sacred geometry card, depending on what that person needs, where they are, what you're sort of looking to achieve, really.
Absolutely. So there's more than one way to use them, and that's why I've created them, because I want people to I really wanted people to start to take more control of the healing aspect of their life. See, everything we need to heal is already within ourselves, and yes, we still look externally for assistance, with counseling and certain doctors. There is a place in the world for everything. So I'm not taking that away from anyone. But what so many of us do is that we wander around aimlessly looking for help. Whereas we're not, rather than go, you know what, we need to breathe, we need to sit, we need to go within, because we need to listen to our higher self. And
well, our higher self already knows everything. That's,
yeah.
I see it in my work as well. When people are having sessions and they're getting information through from their higher self, that is where, well, it is. It's the point of, it's that place that knows everything within you.
Yeah. And what I actually just talk about the QHHT as well, which I think is really good, is, from my experience, is you can take that person, you know that they've got, say, pain in their knee, and you may be talking about the reasons to why, that could be there. It's like, okay, well, you go to that place in your knee, bring your color in, bring a whatever in, and you can heal it. And it's quite amazing what you can do through these sort of, these hypnotic type sessions. And
it's all being done by your higher self.
Pardon?
It's all being done by your higher self.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly.
You're healing yourself.
Exactly. And it's really quite profound. So these, these are my lab are complementary therapies, and let me, as a disclaimer, I'm not telling anyone to use these and take away their medicine. It is not what I'm saying. It is a complementary therapy. They are energetic. So being energetic, it's not going to interfere with medication either. You can take them. If you can't ingest them, no, you can put them, or just straight, put them in your water. You can carry it in your pocket. You know, as a woman, you can put it in your bra. As a man, you can stick it in your pants, you know, like just keep it away from a lot of electrical stuff. You know, that's probably the main thing I say. But, you know, everything holds a place. And really, for me, it's teaching people everything that I create, everything that I do, as we said earlier, and again, you know, it's all the transformative. Everything we're doing is transformation. It is, you know, we're going through that inner alchemy. It's not lead into gold, but we are creating, you know, our own healing within our own bodies. And, you know, you're still going through that cycle, that cycle of seven. I think it starts with calcination, you know, and it's like the phoenix, where we have to, you have to have that tower moment. And it's those tower moments in our lives that really wake us up. And we all have that. We all have a story. We all have experienced trauma, and trauma is very different for everyone.
A lot of people have experienced trauma and don't even realize it's trauma.
Yeah, that's it. And, you know, what I say to people a lot is things happen for you, not to you. Because, you know, and I'll be the example. So the other week, like since I've been back from Egypt, you know, in the last month, I've been sick, and I rarely ever get sick. I then ended up, like, I've had issues with my knees, but I was at a beautiful spa, you know, a week ago, and I hyperextended my knee, and it basically put me on my bum. And I'm like, what is going on? But it was nearly like this.
I'd be thinking, what is the universe trying to tell me?
I know. It's like, what now? What have I done? Anyway, you know, that victim mentality. But what was so beautiful is I'd actually had that body, what is it called? The body design, the human design.
Oh, human design.
I met this beautiful lady before I went away to Egypt, and she said, you want to do it? We were talking about doing a swap, and I said, fantastic, let's do this swap. So she does human design, and she said, I'll do a reading. I knew that I was a manifesting generator. I didn't really know what it was about. But she said, look, I'll do it when I've got time, blah, 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 blah. And then we'll do a swap, and she's going to come and have a healing. Fantastic. And it just so happened, like, it had already been a week or so since we'd made the arrangement, like when it was going to, you know, move forward. But when I received it was when I did my knee. And, you know, you're already feeling a little bit crappy and low and whatever else. And, you know, it's taken me 52 years to actually realize, after what I received from her, because it was nothing that I didn't already know. But it was like, as I said, you know, to do my card deck, it was the permission I was given to do the card deck. It was like I realized in myself that my life purpose is to know that what I'm doing is fine. You know, what I'm doing is enough, and that I am enough. And I don't need to do any more or any less, because I'm right where I need to be. And that is my life lesson, to learn you are enough, you are worthy. You know, and I know so many people, they go through that. But, you know, as I was saying to you before, when I got the first copy of my card deck, I wasn't elated. I cried. I cried because I felt it wasn't enough. But I didn't go around saying that, but, you know, because I thought, oh, does that, you just.
So you felt they weren't good enough, like
ourselves, you don't realize, you know.
Yeah.
And I've had to come, you know, I've raised 4 children on my own, and I've gone through a lot of grief. I've dealt with, you know, my daughter, one of my children, who has had big addictions to drugs, and has been probably one of my biggest teachers in this lifetime. You know, we all have our stories, but and this is where I am going to say it, is that when you truly start to listen to yourself and you start to understand that what you have had to go through has happened for you, not to you, you start to align with your higher purpose and who you are. And I have finally realized that, and that's seriously only in the last week, you know, that I've allowed myself to let go and go, oh my God, you know, why? It's been like, why haven't I been able to see what other people say or see in myself? And now I do. And I feel, you know, don't get me wrong, I still feel very honored when people write to me or say things to me. Like, it's really feel good. It's lovely. It's nice to be acknowledged. But
Yeah.
what I'm loving is that I'm actually have now acknowledged in myself that I am enough.
And you're doing so much to help people too, you know, in the, not just with the elixirs, which they call, is it liquid alchemy in a bottle lab? Yeah.
That,
So your
yeah,
elixirs, your templates, which, you know, you've created this set of psychogeometry cards that people can use, the
yeah,
healings that you provide as well.
yeah,
All of these things that you're doing contribute so much to so many people.
yeah,
That in itself is huge. That in
yeah,
itself is such an achievement, but
yeah,
you know, it is difficult sometimes for people to see what they do for others, whereas other people can see it
yeah,
more clearly.
absolutely. And do you know what the other thing is, and you would know this as well, is that when you are so in alignment with your purpose and your passion, the amount of synchronicities that come about are huge.
Oh, yes. Things just fall into place and line up. The minute you follow, like you said, your purpose, what you are meant to be doing,
Yeah.
things just line up. And when you don't follow what you're meant to be doing, there's roadblocks.
Yeah, all the time. Or you still start seeing it all. You go, oh, bugger that. Oh, bugger that. Oh, go back into victim mode. Oh, it means nothing. It's not happening. But when you actually truly look at it and see it, it can be really profound. And it's like, it's not just about numbers. It's so much more, you know.
So much more than that. The synchronicities, I always say to myself and to others, you know, follow the synchronicities,
Yeah. Yeah.
follow them.
And what's beautiful is, you know, like for example, so when I was in Egypt last, I had my girlfriend come and I went together, and we were able to do things I would not have normally have been able to do on my own because it was too expensive. But one of the things I got to do was go have a private commission between the paws of the Sphinx, which I haven't done yet. I hadn't done before this last trip.
Oh, wow.
And, you know,
So was
being
that
there,
like a tour? Like it was
no,
a
no,
tour?
no. It wasn't a tour. We just went. I was getting the calling to go at the beginning of the year. I kept being told, you got to go. I felt like I just had to go back. I had to go back, but I had to go back now. And I'm so grateful for listening to myself
So it was
because
specifically that calling to go and to see the Sphinx.
oh, no, at that time I didn't know that's what it was going to be. That was only a part
Right.
of what I got to see. But, you know, it's really interesting because we can bring expectation into that as well. And, you know, they say don't have expectation because you only get disappointed when it doesn't happen. And yeah, of course, you know, like, look, I didn't go like last time because I thought something more would happen last time as well. But what was really interesting, and actually what I think is really important is saying this: the way you think you're going to be shown or you're meant to do something may not be exactly how it's going to pan out.
Oh, yes. I get that in
Yeah.
QHHT as well.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Sometimes people think
So,
they're going to have one type of experience and they're not. They're given another type.
yeah.
But yeah, so it's really interesting that
Yeah.
that's
Because you
happening
think
with
you're
you.
going in for something and you get shown something totally different. You go, where did that come from?
Yeah.
Um,
So that's
which I think really
obviously
was my
you.
last experience too with QHHT because I didn't expect what I saw, but God, it was amazing. And I've seen some amazing things, like, you know, when your eyes are wide open, you know, two eyes to look, one eyes to see. It's amazing what you get shown. But so I was sitting at the paws of the Sphinx. I was just sitting in front of the stele, and you know, I still was waiting, or well, not waiting, but I still, at the back of my head, you know, thought, what am I going to be? Am I going to be shown this particular thing by the time I finish this trip? And I've looked down and I found the most perfect feather. And I'm gone, oh my God, no way. And it's the feather of the hoopoe bird, which is one of their native birds. And I've picked up the feather and I'm just looking at it. I'm going, there's something about the feather, you know, I'm being shown for a reason.
You're very
And
drawn to this feather, like,
yeah, like, you know, I
seeing.
picked it up, it was for me. But what it was, you know, one of the things that was related to was with the Egyptian mythology, is that it's actually related to Thoth, and it's related to the wisdom that is imbued within and from him, that is coming through the feather. And I've gone, shut the front gate, because
Yeah.
it was Thoth that led me to Egypt in the first place. When
I was
you know,
about to say, you mentioned that earlier,
yeah,
that you were getting information from him through
yeah,
your higher self,
yeah.
way in the beginning, before
Mm.
you even realized that that's what was going on, or who was it. Did you even realize, you know, who was even communicating with you back then? But it's,
I
you know,
did,
and
because he
you
told me.
did. Oh,
Yeah,
good,
because he told me who it was that was coming
good.
through. And like, I was just right. I ended up started carrying my diary, you know, my diary thing with me, because I was like getting information. I was like, oh, quick, got to write something else down. I actually, one of my templates, I think it is the ancient sound frequencies, the one that I did that, oh, I think it's that one, or one of the other ones. I can't remember now. I've just got so much that I've written. But I actually have put pretty much all my channelings into one of those pieces of work, which is not out on display. It's something I've got to, I used to have it many years ago out as an ebook, but I know it's got to come out again, and I know I need to write a book. And actually, I'd like to just say that on a synchronicity level is, well, here comes my cap. Um, um, a number of years ago, I must have started in 2017, 18. I actually thought it was a bit earlier, but I got this overwhelmed to start writing. And as I told you before, you know, I got the message so clearly that I am enough in this past week. Well, I had actually called this body of writing that I'd written enough. And I'd written down the words that I'd written down, like the synchronicities. And it was like I had to go back and find it, because I remember writing. And because I feel what they're showing me is that I've actually got to start writing a book.
Mm.
And I feel it will be about my experiences and what I've seen as well, you know, what I've been shown, because I feel, you know, my story can help others, and, you know, then bring it through my work, and then hence even these tours to Egypt that I've started, you know, for me. Have we got time just to say?
Yeah, I wanted to actually ask about that as well, because I saw the last time you were there, I think, I saw through your Instagram you were running a tour. So you actually run tours of Egypt as well.
Yeah, so that's what I've started. Look, in the beginning, I thought, okay, I love Mexico, and I want to do Bolivia and Peru and Egypt. But what I realized, you know, because I'm one of those people, is I get this thing in my head and I've got to do everything. And then I realized,
Yeah,
no, no,
one
no, no,
thing
no,
turns into another
one
thing,
thing at a
turns into
time.
another thing. And yeah, I get that. I get that.
And I really thought it would be Peru over all the rest, but it ended up being Egypt. Egypt for me is like that cradle of civilization. What we need, we can get from Egypt is so profound, for what we can see, which is so profound. You know, down to the Great Pyramid. To me, that is like the master key that actually ignites and operates with all the other pyramids, for example, or would have back in time. um, you know, it's that sort of thing. and to be able to go down and travel down the Nile and to the temples, and just to, you know, to experience is so beautiful and so transformative. And it's where, you know, I personally had my biggest transformation. So my reasoning for wanting to create these tours, and the one I've got called now, which is so apt, and I know that I'm the mirror of everything that I create, and it's called the Seed of Sekhem, which I've actually also created an elixir over. I should send you one,
Oh,
actually.
is it seed of second?
The Seed of Sekhem, so the seed of power. And of course, that's in relation to Sekhmet. But in a nutshell, it's about being out for you to start standing into your power, for us to start, you know, taking back control and being in control of our lives. It's about creating the balance within our lives, you know, looking at Sekhmet as the healer and the destroyer. Again, you're looking at the aspect of polarity, you know.
Very true. So this elixir that
That
you've created, that one, is that
so
available at the moment? Do you have
that
that
one I
available in your
created
kit?
specifically for the tour, but I've
Ah,
been
right.
using it. Like, I don't have it on my website or anything. It was created for that reason. But I'm really been in awe of what I've created with it, because I feel every little thing that's happened, you know, that happens in our life, you can't just contribute it to one thing, because it's normally a number of different things that, you know, assist you to getting to where you need to be.
That's exactly right. It's an accumulation of
Yeah.
experiences that we have, that create who we
Yeah.
are and the
Oh,
paths that we
absolutely.
decide to take, you
Yeah.
know.
Absolutely. So I had this lady, so my tour is the 29th of September until the 12th of October. It's called the Seed of Sekhem.
Oh,
Um,
29th of September till when, sorry?
12th of October,
12th of October. Okay, so it's a couple of
couple of
weeks. And
weeks.
that's
Yeah.
not that far away as
Oh,
well.
it's not that far away. But I had this lady contact me this week. And so, a little backstory: when I was in Egypt last, I befriended this beautiful soul. And she's a journalist, and she's really good at reading body language. So, when my girlfriend and I got over there and we spent some time with her, and she said, you know, let me read, you know, is it all right if I read you? And I'm like, yeah, cool. And, you know, my friend was, yeah, cool. Anyway, it was really beautiful, the wording that she, you know, what she had to say at the time. And on the day that we left, the night before we left, it was like already 11 o'clock. They said, can we come to your hotel? We want to give you something. It's like, absolutely fine. They had bought us both, Maria and I, a statue each, and she had gifted me the statue of Horus. And Horus, you know, being the god of war, you know, we know about the Eye of Horus, which is protection,
Yes.
but he's the falcon. And I said to her, why? Because I've never really aligned myself with Horus. You know, for me, Thoth's a sharp, you know, that's where I go down the line and whatnot. But she said, the reason I've given you Horus, because I see you as a true leader. And I was like so humbled. It was just so beautiful. So coming back to, and he sits in my room, you know, I've created an altar with him there. And during the week, this lady's called me, and she's, you know, said, I know I need to go to Egypt. She said, the only reason I know at this point what I've been given is, she knows nothing of Egypt. She goes, I have to see Egypt through the eye of Horus. And, you know, in my
Oh,
head,
wow.
all I've thought about is, oh, yeah, I get it. You know, maybe your guides are telling you that you've got to see it from a bird's eye view. You know, it's our perception. Remember, perception is everything. And the more aware we become, the more our you know, we perceive things, and we can perceive things in deeper ways. And I'm thinking, yep, so you've got to see it from the bird's eye view at a 360-degree angle, and you're looking at from a certain height. That's what I was thinking.
That's what you immediately
And
went
that,
to.
my immediate thought was, and I'm talking to her, and I've gone, no, no way. And I said to her, I just need to tell you a little story. And so I told her about the Horus that I was gifted. And I said to her, this to me is, like there's no such thing as coincidence. And this is a synchronicity. And I said to her, I received this statue of Horus, and I said, what if you are meant to travel with me because you're meant to see Egypt through my eyes?
Through your
Through
perspective,
the eye
that's
of
right.
Horus. So I've taken it as, as that other meaning of I've been shown that I take on that energy of Horus. But as I said, it's perception, but it just made so much sense. And then yesterday, this other lady connected with me and wanted to know more. She'd written to me and said, I'd love to know more. She says, I have Thoth sitting next to my bed, like a statue of Thoth. And then we started talking about that, and we actually were talking about the number 5, because the number 5 has been coming up all week, and she gets the number 5. And then she after I stopped speaking to her, she went into a bag and got something out that was a 5555. It's all these synchronicities that you start seeing playing, in your field, and you go, okay, if we're living in this matrix, we're being shown exactly how we can operate to our highest good, while we're here. And are we listening?
Exactly.
So
I think you brought up something really important as well. A lot of people assume when we talk about or bring up synchronicities, we're talking about numbers, right? But it's not just numbers. So things like, you being given that Horus statue, and that wasn't all that long ago that you were in Egypt. What, a month or
a month
not
ago.
even a month
Not
ago?
I think it's just coming on to a month.
Yeah, so a few weeks, and then you're contacted by someone who says they need to see it from was it the Horus point of view, or
that she was shown that she had to see
correct,
through the eye of Horus.
through the eye of Horus, right? And this lady had just given you that statue saying that she saw those qualities, those leadership qualities in you, right? And you're taking these tours of Egypt. I mean, that in itself is a synchronicity.
Correct. Yeah.
The other lady contacting you with, with Toth saying, he's, I'm like, no, she doesn't know, didn't know, I don't know if she knows now, but she didn't know then your connection with Toth.
Yes.
So those kind of synchronicities as well.
Yeah.
So it's not just numbers,
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We've got to take our blinkers off and really look out for these, because when we get these synchronicities, we know we're on the right path.
Oh, absolutely. And I just love it, because I usually have people say to me, or my friends that I'm with, they go, oh my God, you see everything. I don't see that. I don't see that. And they're still highly intuitive individuals. But I'm just so hyper aware of everything around me. And I'm finding it's even more so. It's just even looking up into the sky or looking. So the day I hurt my leg, my knee, I was driving back. We were driving back from the spas, and I was about to tell my girlfriend how I had thought about giving up on something in particular. But as I was also saying that, I was then going to say to her, but I'm not going to do that, because I don't quit. I give it my best shot. And as I've gone to say, just before I've gone to say that last sentence, I've looked out, like I was driving, I've looked out of my window, and there were 3 pelicans flying in formation. And then she goes, oh my God, it's also 333. So not only, did we have the confirmation of 3, and then the 333. So 3 is all about, there is that aspect of leadership, to a point, but it's also that expansion that we're going through in ourselves.
Expansion and creation.
and
Number
creating
3.
the joy and all that that's there. But it also, again, I can't remember, I've looked it up so many times, but Pelican itself is about, it's actually quite auspicious to see the Pelican, because it's also about abundance and what you're about to create and bring in. It's also, actually, I do remember, sorry. It's also, when you look at for the Egyptian aspect, it's a representation of birth, death, and rebirth. So, you're going through that, like the Ouroboros or the Phoenix or Osiris, and it's about creating the fertility after that. And, it's like that snake medicine, because what does snake do? It goes through the birth, death, and rebirth, and then it goes back into transformation. And, we're into that ascension, going into that higher level, of frequency, of consciousness that we're here to experience. And it's just like, okay, I get it. I mean, I still sat on my bum for the whole weekend with my leg, but it's like, no, look, you've got to see these signs. They're all there for a reason,
Oh, yes.
and not everything's going to happen when you want it to happen. It's not going to be in your time.
And sometimes not on your terms either.
Tell your terms, that's true.
Not, things that are meant to happen, shouldn't really get fixated so much on how things are going to happen.
Exactly.
We just know that, once you become in tune with what it is you're meant to be doing, you just start taking, well, this is what I do, I just start taking steps and action. And, if I hit a roadblock, that's fine, do something else. I look for the synchronicities around me. And, sometimes I even ask, whether it be my guides, whoever, right? Just who wants to listen. And I will say, okay, I'm thinking about making this decision or going down this path.
Yeah.
I'm about to head to the shops now.
Yeah.
Show me along the way X, Y, Z. Like I'll say, okay, show me a 000 number plate, or show me someone in a, red car with a, this kind of combination, or whatever it could be, right? So
like, I'm on the right track by showing me.
Yeah, let me know I'm on. Yeah, I ask for it. And sometimes I'm shown, sometimes I'm not, because again, I'm not always on the right track.
Yeah.
And it sounds a bit crazy, but every time I make a decision based on that, it's worked out.
Yeah.
So I can't deny that it works. So you seeing all those synchronicities, it's amazing. And it's so good that you're open to them as well.
Yeah.
Not everyone sees them.
Yeah. Yeah. No, they don't. They don't see them. They don't feel them. They just, and that's why I'm very, very much a believer that people cross our paths for a reason, season, lifetime as well, because we're here regardless of whether they know it or not. It's like the same example of going to Egypt. You might just be going because you want to go and see these megalithic sites, the stone formations. But what you don't actually realize is that you're going to be touched by these stones. You're going to be touched by the energy there. And it is going to affect you in some way or another, because your body is 100% geometry. And what does geometry store? Memory. So it's going to trigger you somewhere along the lines. It's going to activate an aspect of you. It's going to create some form of thought or feeling, and you're going to start questioning. So I say to people, you won't leave Egypt the way you arrive, in terms of your thought processes, how you feel, what people can go, what the hell am I doing with my life? I don't want to be doing this. This is not feeling like it's purposeful, I'm just doing because I have to. What is it that I can do to make my life more meaningful? What am I missing, And this is what places like Egypt do for people. It's not just, yes, the megaliths are amazing, but there's, they were built for a reason. they were built for purpose, especially where their coordinates, you know, they're situated
Hmm.
from the pyramids to every single temple.
That's right. And also, you know, like you say, they were built for purpose, but even if they're not being used for that purpose at the
Yeah.
moment, they still hold that memory, that frequency. There are things there that will still activate something in you when you do go there. Like you
Yeah.
say, you leave Egypt differently to what you arrived.
Yeah.
Either, and that could be that could be on an unconscious level as well. People, you know, not being so aware because it's not a huge shift. You know, you're not going to feel profoundly different, but it's those little shifts, those little
And
activations
feel
that over
profound.
time.
Yeah.
That's right. So tell
Yeah.
me, Emily, if people wanted to reach you for anything, for your elixirs, for your cards, for your tours of Egypt, healing, whatever, you do so much. But if people do want to reach you for any of that, how can they reach you?
So the best way you can go onto my website, which is www.phoenixgateway.com.au. That is my main website. That's got everything on it, from the tour you can find to the elixirs that I sell to the healing work that I do. And if you're not quite sure, you're welcome to email me, emily@phoenixgateway.com.au. And I'm even contactable on the phone, like, you know, which is not an issue. That number also is on my website, which is 0411 335 842. So I'm quite accessible to reach and
Lovely.
talk, you know, about any of the products or to help you choose something, or if you want to, you know, to come for healing, we can talk about that as well. And it would be hands-on, but I can do, if you're overseas or interstate, I can also do distant healing. That's not an issue.
Yeah, well, energy isn't limited to obviously where you are, your immediate vicinity. So of course,
Yeah,
distant healing is
absolutely.
very, very, or just as powerful as in-person
Yeah,
healing. So really, sometimes I think it just comes down to preference, you know,
yeah,
or
absolutely.
time or location, but
That's
it's
true.
all the same. And in terms of social media, I know
Okay, yep.
you
So
have an Instagram.
I mainly use Instagram and Facebook, but Instagram I think I like a little bit better. So it's Phoenix Gateway 369 is my Instagram, and then yeah, I don't even know. It's Phoenix Gateway something um
um,
on
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 Facebook.
Facebook. But you know, I'm actually finding I'm putting more stuff nearly on my personal page because nobody really looks at Facebook much anymore. I do have a group, but you know, I think my preference is more Instagram these days.
Yeah, you're more active on there. I know that's
Yeah.
how I initially came across you. So that's
Yeah.
fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Emily. That was, I mean, you do so much from your, like I said, from your elixirs to your, you know, sacred geometry, your templates that you've now made cards from, your healings, your tours, just everything. And even your journey, you know, your story about how you became the person that you are, you
Yeah.
know, whether that be through, obviously there were some big triggers in there
Mhm.
along your journey, you know, a lot of tragedy, I suppose, and things, but your involvement through that and from that, and you know, I just think it really suits your business name, to be honest. Phoenix
Yeah.
Gateway, like the rising of the phoenix. You
Yeah.
know, a lot of people would crumble, you know, with so many, you know, I mean, you lost your husband at a young age, your brother-in-law, your mum shortly after, all these things happening. And you're like a phoenix rising from the ashes, you know, and not only that, but you're bringing people with you. You know,
Yeah.
you're also helping people. So that in itself is very, very, you know, it's very inspirational. So I think
Yeah.
you're
Thank
doing
you.
a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Thank you. Thank you.